Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dice Tower. My name is Z Garcia.
And I'm Camilla.
I'm Mike Delisio.
Today we're going to be covering Celtae. We're going to be doing a review of this one here from Pythagoras. This is a game in which you are going to be moving around a rondel, taking various actions to gather up your forces, to take over areas, and to fight off those pesky Romans. They're Romans, right? I think they're Romans.
That's what you told me when we played. I don't know.
Yeah, it's the Romans. It is the Roman armies.
They're at it again, man. Every time with the Romans showing up, breaking our stuff. I've had it with these Romans. Anyway, that's enough from me. Let's go ahead and take a look at how this game works from the illustrious Mike Delisio.
You got it. All right, here we see Celtae all set up. I'm going to be giving you a brief overview of this game. I'm certainly not going to be getting into a lot of detail. Every player is going to have their own player board where they have their discs of their color, some cubes along the bottom. Actually, this should start at the left. And everyone's going to be drafting at the beginning of the game a leader card. Okay, on your turn, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be moving around the central area of the board. There are 4 spots there, and each spot is adjacent to 2 different types of actions, all right? And when you are at the beginning of your turn, you have to move the marker. It can't stay where it was the previous turn. You're going to be moving it 1, 2, or 3 spots clockwise around. If you move it only 1 spot, that's actually going to give you a strength point. So you would do that if you only moved 1. 2 doesn't affect the strength, and to move the full 3, you need to spend 3 strength points. So let's say that the first player, they went ahead and moved there, they got their strength point because they only moved 1. Now, they're adjacent to these 2 different actions. So the top and the bottom is either going to be a farming or a building action. It's the same up there. Here you're farming or building in the south region. Here you're farming or building in the north region. All right? This spot is to recruit, and this spot is to battle. So farm or build, recruit, or battle. All right, well, let's just kind of do these in order. So let's say they're going to do the farm or build action, and perhaps they are going to farm. When you are ready to take the action, you optionally can swap out one of your active workers with one of the workers in that spot. So maybe what I want to do is I'm going to trade out my warrior to get another farmer there because that's going to help me with my farm action. When you farm, you are going to be getting one of these cards that are added to your deck. You have a total of 5 cards that you start the game with, all right? And so it tells you you get the first one for free. You always will get this card, the leftmost card, when you farm, all right? So that would be added to my hand. And then what it's telling you is that you get another card or another number of cards based on the number of farmers you have. So I have 2 active farmers in my area here, and I can get more of these cards. I have 2, so I can get either of these 2 cards, the cost up there, or I can get 2 of these other cards. And so let's say that maybe I wanted to get this one and this one, and now those are added to my hand. Once that's done, these are going to move over. They're going to get refilled from this deck. All right? That is farming, getting more cards in your hand. All right? Let's say instead of farming, this player chose to build. So what they might do here is, this is obviously assuming they had not done the farm, they may switch out one of their farmers. Actually, they don't want that. They want that one, okay? Because now they've got 2 builders. And what this is going to allow you to do is take one of your discs starting from the left and put it on one of these 4 citadels in the region that you're taking the action. So again, this is a southern action. If I was doing this up here, I'd be placing it into one of those citadels up there, all right? What it's telling you is that here it's saying you have to discard 3 cards to place that there, but you get a discount times the number of farmers you have. So you actually have 2 farmers and you have 3 as your base, so you only have to discard 1 card to be able to do that. So maybe I just go ahead and discard this card, and now I would take my leftmost disc, and I can place it into any of these citadels, all right? So let's say, for example, I wanted to get more strength. I place it into this spot, and I get that bonus immediately. I pop up to 4 strength there. There are other things that these can do. These are randomly put out, and the same ones are put out in a random order on the top. When all 3 of these are filled, the player who filled it is going to flip this over. They're going to get this in their area, which is 1 point, and it's going to give you a reminder that at the end of the game, you're going to get a point. Everybody that has a marker here is going to get a point, and these all kind of work the same way. So that's farm and build, all right? If you come over to the recruit action, here you'd be recruiting in the north. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be potentially taking workers from your active pool and putting them into your, there's a name for it. Let me look it up really quick, what the name is. You're going to put them into your tribe. Thank you. So all the discs that go into this area are your tribe. These are your active workers. You're always going to have 3 active workers, no more, no less. Always are going to have 3 active workers. So if you take the recruit action, maybe what I would do is I would trade out here because I want one of these nobles in my spot. And what it allows you to do is you recruit an extra worker from your active workers pool into your tribe. Well, you're going to immediately do 1, okay? You do that no matter what. You're taking one of these and putting them into your tribe. So let's say that now I put this builder here, and now I have this at all times. And so if I had another builder up here, that would count as 2 builders, all right? So it's a way to kind of permanently buff up your worker pool there, all right? Then for each noble you have, you can recruit an extra worker from your pool. So maybe now I do this, okay? Now that I've got these 2 here, that's the maximum I can do. I'm going to refill my active pool from the center area. So anytime you're refilling your active pool, it comes from the center. But what is interesting about it is that you choose 1 at a time. So I need to get 2 new workers. Let's say I take this builder, I refill it before I choose my second worker. Now let's say maybe, yeah, I'll take this, and then we refill that, okay? So that is the recruit action. It's a way to get workers into your tribe. Also a thing you can do, once you, with the same action, you can discard workers to gain a druid, okay? Druids are essentially wild workers, all right? And so what it'll tell you is you need to give up a certain number and type of workers to be able to do that. So if I had a noble and a warrior in my tribe, they would be removed from there, so I wouldn't have access to them as extra powers, but I would get this tile, flip it over, it's going to give me an extra point, and I would get 1 of these nobles by discarding a card from my hand. When this stack runs out, what it's kind of telling you here is that you're going to take one of these progress markers, which I have not talked about yet, and you place it onto one of these cards on the on the right-hand side of the board. These are all end-game scoring cards, and they are going to give a number of points according to the number of progress markers on there for everybody that it applies to. So maybe they are going to put 1 here, which is talking about a particular citadel at the end of the game. All right. So that is the recruit. We've already talked about the farm and build. Let's last talk about the battle area over here. So in this region, what you're going to be doing, maybe you optionally are going to trade out for one of these because you definitely want soldiers to do the fighting. Okay, in this area, what you are doing is battling these Roman armies. And so since I'm in the north here, I'd be battling that army. If I was down here and taking it, it would be this army. So this is saying that it takes 7 points of strength to defeat it. Right now on my board currently, I have 4. So what you're going to do is you're going to be discarding cards from your hand, and you're looking at the bottom. The only time that you really are paying attention to the bottom is when you are doing this battle action. And so you can see that there are different symbols down here, all right? I've got 3 of the helmets and 2 of the other symbols here. for however many soldiers you've got in your active pool or in your tribe, you are going to get a point for every card of the same symbol that you discard. So if I have a base of 4 and I need 3 more, I can discard these 3 helmets to give me an extra 3 points of strength, which now gets me to 7. You can never get more than 4 per card. And now I've defeated this Roman army. I would take it, I would flip it over, it's going to give me a point at the end of the game, and then additionally what I can do is I can look at this track up here and I can discard another card to place one of my cubes out. So maybe I discard this card and I put my topmost cube on that associated spot, which is right here. Okay, there's going to be endgame scoring that is going to relate to that, things along those lines. When these run out, then you would put this progress marker on one of those cards. Same here, and same here. So that's how those progress markers go out. The rest of the progress markers, which is essentially the tracking for the game, is every time you cross this river, the active player, whoever does it, maybe they went 2 spots, is going to take the topmost progress marker and place it on one of those cards. Okay? Play is going to continue like this until the last progress marker gets placed on those cards. At that point, every player is going to be able to take 2 actions in a row, and then whoever has the most points is going to be the winner. Points are going to be gained through a number of different ways. Many of them are going to be coming from those cards. Many of them might be coming from points you've collected throughout the game. Things along those lines. All right, well, that's a general overview of Celtae. Let's go back and let you know what we think.
So as I said in the intro, Pythagoras Games are the publishers for this one. And I've seen several of their games. I haven't played many of them, but I've seen several of them. And so far, I've never seen one that looks this good, this striking, that makes this bold a choice on the cover, on the artwork everywhere, the pieces. So if nothing else, they get a giant kudos right there for the production on this one. I think it's really well done. I love the look. I love the detail even on this striking cover that they chose to go with some foiling on some of the details. The whole thing, I think, looks fantastic.
I think you see that throughout the game as well. Like the bits, the wooden bits are real chunky, you know, the workers that you take and things like that. So yeah, struck by the cover, and then just as you're opening it up, it's just it's really nice all throughout.
Yeah, and not only is this a real departure from their other games that I've seen, I also have not played many. I've played some of their small box ones, the recent ones, and those are starting to look good. So maybe there's just some turning point happening with this publisher, and if that's the case, I say keep going because it's fantastic. But for a game that is not one of those deluxe Kickstarter type games, I believe this was just a retail release, it's one of the best looking games that I can think of in a while. It really just looks fantastic on the table, and above just the aesthetics, which are very nice, the game has some really good kind of design UI elements on the board. And that to me is really important because it gives you reminders on the board to kind of help you remember what you're doing. Oh yeah, this tells me right here that if I move 1, I get a strength. If I go 2, I don't get anything. And if I move 3, I have to spend a strength. They put it right on the board, not on a player aid. It's right there. You don't need to consult a player aid because the board tells you. Even for setup, it has stuff on the board to remind you how many of the Roman army tiles you put out there depending on player count, and how many of those Druid cards you put out, or tiles actually, depending on player count. So it's beautiful looking, and it's also very functional. And to kind of just put a ribbon and bow on this one, I also think that the iconography is quite good.
I agree with that. I think it's a good-looking game and a very, like you said, it manages to utilize the space on the board, which, to be fair, is kind of a big player aid anyway. But they manage to use that space very well to tell you what you need to know when you need to know it. I do wish that the one that threw me off was the symbol for sending out people and training one of them to be a druid. That symbol which represents merely that category, that wedge of the rondel, looks like it's something. And it is just the train people symbol. That's unfortunate. That's the only one I thought was a little weird, and I know you had a little trouble with that one too. Because if you go and get cards, it's a big symbol for cards, and it tells you how you do it. This symbol, which just, again, represents Druid training, it looks like it means something, and it's not. It's just a category header.
Right, so you have to kind of ignore that top part and go to the second part where it's more of like a flow chart, you know, and that I got hung up on that for a couple turns, actually. Tried to start the top and then have to go down to the bottom. I already did that. Oh, wait, no, hold on. Yeah, it definitely hung me up.
Yeah, yeah.
And in general, I think that action is a bit of the outlier in the game, right? Because as you mentioned, you're going around a rondel, and there's essentially 5 actions in the game, right? And because they put the what is it, farming and harvesting, I believe they're called. They put those on the same spot on the north side of the board and the south side of the board. Then you've got military on the right, and you've got that recruiting action, which can lead to a druid action. And so that one is the one that I have to spend the most time when I'm teaching the game, is to explain, you know, what the purpose of druids are, how you get them. That's a little more complex, because one of my favorite elements of this game is that it is very straightforward. You see it out on the table. It looks like there's a lot going on. And there is a fair amount going on, but I don't find this particularly difficult to teach, with the exception of that druid rule that I was talking about. And I think it has a very nice flow to the game. And we could talk more about this if you want to in a little bit, but I absolutely love how they handle the scoring in this game. I just think that is the most probably unique element of the game, because there's a couple of things. I think the swapping of your pieces, that's unique. I don't know if I've ever seen it handled exactly like it is here. And the way scoring works, it's one of my favorite types of scoring, where the players are choosing what scores and how much.
Well, that's interesting. We should go ahead and jump into that right now. I think there's going to be some divergent views on this one, Mike. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Before I do, I will say I think the rondel mechanism is very well handled in this game. And like you said, it's interesting, and I'll leave it at that. I really like that one. So as far as the scoring goes, I actually disagree with you on that one, because I found the scoring to be a good idea implemented in a very sort of flat, by the numbers way that leads to very low scoring, and doesn't really let you carve your own path. And unfortunately, I found that to be doubled down upon with the special tribe card that you draft at the beginning of the game that represents, I guess, you. Because those are so incredibly boring. It is. Here's a point for doing something. Better do that, because it's a point and the game's kind of low scoring. Or flip it over and you get 3 points if you did it, but you did more of it. Right. It is just so... Again, on the one side of the coin, they tell you, do this or else. On the other side, it's like, well, there's no, this is not that interesting to do. I guess it's direction, I suppose, but it doesn't really let me play around in this neat little rondel world that you built. So I found the scoring to be kind of flat.
Yeah, I think I felt more that way. What I wrote down was it felt more like a balancing act than a scoring. It's more like, oh, you have 3 points there, I need to make sure I get 3 points there. I mean, if in my plays of it, if you look down the score pads, it was like, we both got 3, we both got 4, I got 16, somebody else got 14, then we both got 5. It's like, you just balance, you max out and balance so much of it, rather than actually getting excited about these scoring opportunities that you're building up into it. I know there's multiple times that it was like, okay, well, we both will score the exact same on these two, so I guess I'll put it here, because I needed to put one of those little, I don't know if they were thematically, little towers out, to annotate the scoring. And so it just felt very... I don't want to say balance, but just that. I just need to make sure that I tip right up as you do, and that's it. It was just, if you go through the rondel and do it, which I will agree is my favorite part. I love the rondel, and if you only go one space, you get a bonus. If you go two, you get nothing, or you can go three at a penalty. I think that really makes for an interesting decision as you go through the rondel. But it also kind of, just leads to the game being on rails with the scoring, where, all right, I'll get the 3 points because you have the 3 points, and so bring us back to zeroing out our scores.
Yeah, and before we kind of got into this discussion a bit more, I mentioned that I really enjoy the scoring, and while saying that, I do understand your concerns. The game is a low-scoring game. It is a very tight game. I have not seen any wild point spreads. But that being said, I still really enjoy the process of being able to not only put a point marker on something that I'm currently doing well on, but by doing so, also putting pressure on the other players at the table to account for it at least. They may decide, look, he's got that on lock. I'm not even going to worry about that. I'm going to go for something else. But there's so many of those scoring markers that it's hard to just ignore something completely, especially, again, with lower scoring numbers, right? It's not a high-scoring game. So I don't know that I'd argue that it's not the most dynamic scoring. You've been calling it flat? That's probably fair. It's not the most dynamic scoring, but I still love the player agency element of it, where you're kind of deciding what and where. And it also has another one of the things that's one of my favorite things in a game, which is that there's no predetermined number of rounds, and the players can affect the pacing of the game, because every time you cross the river, basically you start in the southern region, the lower right of the circle. Every time you go around one full circle, you're going to take whoever that active player is, takes one of the scoring markers and puts it out there, and that triggers the end of the game when those scoring markers are gone. So I really do like that. And I also don't know that I would trade the dynamism you might get, because you said these scorings are kind of flat, kind of boring. We can agree to disagree a little bit on that. I wouldn't fight too hard on it, but what I would say is that I would not trade that for convoluted scoring that would make the teach of the game harder, because one of my favorite elements of this game is that this is the type, if I'm going to play a Euro right now, this is hitting a lot of buttons for me, because it's relatively easy to teach, it's relatively easy to learn, it plays in a reasonable amount of time that the players can actually influence. So I'm not sure I would trade that for a little bit more dynamic scoring. And that may be a false equivalency, but I put it out there.
Yeah, I think part of the problem with the scoring is that it is that feeling of it being flat, or that feeling of you just made this juicy, it's my thing to pursue now, is made worse at lower player counts, I believe. Because it is more tit for tat. You for one thing, there's fewer scoring cards in a lower player count, and I can more easily see what you're doing, what you're enriching, and therefore I could follow that and try to catch up to it because it's better right now. Whereas in a game with a full player count, I simply can't pursue everything. And so the scores and therefore the things we're doing might vary a little bit. Maybe it's just one of those games that you want to stick with a higher player count so that those things fall out of sync with each other, and everybody's kind of doing their own thing. So therefore I kind of can be convinced the other way a little bit if you're talking exclusively 4-player games of this. I don't think that forgives how lame your special character is.
Right.
In having one thing, it's like, hey, you'd have no idea what to do. This is why we created these starting characters, so that you have something to do.
Right.
Go get some druids. Go fight a couple Roman tiles. That'll get you a point. That's just not exciting. I found it to be, it robbed the game of what could have been some character and some, way thematically into what's going on. I thought it robbed it of that opportunity myself.
Yeah, I don't think they didn't feel very inspired. It kind of felt like the throwaway points. It's, in fact, I don't think in my plays I ever went to the upgraded side. And I was like, the 1 point's good enough. I don't know if I'm going to go into that because that's not working with the other scores. It just felt like extra that was added on top that wasn't needed. That I think honestly was a lost opportunity.
Yes, that's how I feel.
Yeah, and I actually agree with that. Those cards are they feel tacked on. It's an interesting thing because if they were not in the game at all, right, if they just didn't exist, I think all three of us would probably argue, I wish there was some kind of player power that you had, right? But it almost seems like having a lame player power is almost worse than having none at all, which I don't know, intuitively that doesn't seem to make sense, but I'm not as bothered by it as you are, but I absolutely feel like it's probably the weakest link in the game, and it is a very much a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I think maybe the problem is it's not a player power, it's a scoring power.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I don't do anything differently. I'll just get a point or 3 for doing a thing or whatever, right? So there you go. Yeah, other than that, and we keep harping on the one, the scoring is a big part of it, and it's a big part we're focusing on. I thought the cadence and sort of the rhythm of the game was neat, and I agree with you, Mike, that I like that sort of indeterminate endgame trigger, wrap that up, play that final round, and then see how everything shook out. I just wish, I guess, at the end of the day, that there was a little more, that they had pushed the boundaries a little more, there was a little bit more wiggle room in there to mess around, because I like what it's doing. I like the cards and their multi-use, benefits. I like the look of it. I like what's going on. And yeah, it's the kind of Euro game that's simple to teach and play. I just wish it was a little more playful, maybe, and found ways to inspire me to pursue points as opposed to making me follow them because clearly this thing is better and everybody seems to be jumping on that bandwagon, so here I go, try to keep up. For me, I'm going to come down on this one at a 6. I want to like it more. It's one of those games where I keep thinking, maybe if I did this, if I did that, how can I push it this way or that way? But it just ends up feeling a little disappointing. I don't dislike it, I can't get into it, I think, is what it is for me.
I'm right there with you. I came down at a 6.5. I just feel myself just shy of recommending it. It just felt a little flat in the play. I love the multiplayer cards. Are you going to use them to farm, or are you going to use them for the military? I love there's so much going on in the card in a very clean iconography way and graphic design way. I really like that. Like I said before, I love the Rondel with the bonus or the punishment, I guess, payment that you have to make depending on how far you want to go. So you're really thinking about that, getting the action you want, lining that up with the amount of spaces away, and are you going to push over the side to be able to get another scoring out there. I love all the pieces of it, but ultimately it comes to scoring and it just kind of falls flat. That last round is like, I don't really understand, like the scoring tiles. It seems always better to wait. Why would you ever go for the scoring tiles, the military or the druid ones early game? Why not just wait till they get better, and then rack up 2 or 3 at a time? Like it just kept falling a little flat in the scoring for me, a little bit more than I want. So I can't generally recommend it. But I also, I did enjoy my plays of it, but not one that I hope to go back to over and over.
Yeah, I think if somebody else recommended playing it, I'd be like, yeah, sure, I can play it. It's quick. It'll be fine. I'm just not going to walk away, finding it a rousing experience, I suppose.
Right, yeah.
Well, it's not a surprise based on our discussion here. I knew I'd be coming in at the highest. I'm going to be giving it an 8. It's a game that I really was surprised by. I had no expectations going in other than I knew that the cover was beautiful. But I had not played a game from this publisher that, honestly, that I've ever really enjoyed. Now, I haven't played a lot, like you said, Z. I've played it maybe 2 or 3. But this one really, it was one of those games where I had a great first experience. I was like, man, this is what I'm looking for in Euros right now. Like this, just for me personally, this is what I'm looking for in Euros right now. And then additionally, beyond that, sometimes that'll happen. I'll have a really good first experience and then I find myself thinking, I don't know that I really even want to play it again. I mean, that was fun, but this one I've been playing a lot. It's one that I like basically putting it out there as an option for people to play because it's one I feel comfortable teaching. It's one I feel like people pick up on relatively quickly. And, I've been satisfied, even though, as you said, it could be a bit more dynamic. The player cards are very much a missed opportunity. But that being said, this is a game I really, really enjoy and would play almost any time because it just hits so many of my Euro tastes right now.
Well, there we go, folks. That is Celtae. That is an 8 out of 10, so that's a seal of approval from us here at the Dice Tower. And that's gonna do it. Thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Z Garcia.
I'm Camilla.
And I'm Mike Delisio.
Enjoy gorgeous covers, everybody. Look at that.
So pretty.